Hello and welcome to It's No Secret. I'm Kat and today I'm joined on the show with Tim. This is not Christine, everyone. We have a special Money Moments episode with Tim, who you may have heard us mention a few times on the episodes before because he is one of our great team members here at Kernel. We also refer to him as the only Gen Z that works in our team, and we like to give him a bit of stick about that. But today he is actually here to share a little bit about his journey with money and finances to date, particularly going through the transition from being, I'm going to make an assumption, but we'll find out soon, a relatively poor uni student into someone that actually earns some money, pays for themselves, has all the things and lots of different financial goals. So bit of background. Firstly, thanks, Tim, for joining us. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, so exciting. How are you feeling being on this side of the recording
This
mics?
side of the screen?
Yeah.
This side of the camera. It's great. It feels okay. I'm a bit nervous right now, but hey. I think that's just with everyone.
What's the worst that could happen? It's all
That's
good.
Right.
Exactly. And for those of you that are looking at the videos or see any of this on social, you'll be like, why are they just downing some beverages? Well, it is the end of financial year today and we are having a bit of a party here at work. So thought what better time than to lock Tim into the recording studio and also get him to record some money chat. So Tim, thank you for joining us. Bit of background for Tim before we kind of jump into a few questions. He was originally born in the Philippines, moved to the South Island, grew up in Ashburton from intermediate, went to university at the University of Otago and did business degree.
That's right.
Yeah, awesome. And then made the move up to Auckland at the ripe old age of 22 to basically start his professional career up here. So lots of things to dive into. He is coming up to his 1 year anniversary with Kernel, so he's been with us for a year, which is really awesome. And yeah, we're just going to get stuck in. So Tim, to kick us off, tell us about, I guess, like any early recollections of money in your family and things that you learnt as a kid.
Yes. So I actually grew up with my granddad being a shoemaker. So
Cool.
that was very fun. This is back in the Philippines. He started his own thing. He married into a very rich family, my grandma. Mm-hmm. And so she had a lot of land, basically.
Right.
And he grew up as a farmer. And he knew nothing about business, but he dipped his toes in. It didn't end up too well, but he ended up getting all of his kids, a college degree, and now we're all in New Zealand. So it pretty much worked out for him. So that's kind of like where it stemmed from. And I realized pretty early on that being able to be smart with your money and actually know what to do with it does really go a long way.
Yeah.
So I grew up with a family of like lots of doctors in there. So my uncle's a doctor, my aunt is a doctor, my cousins, they're in the medical field. So that's kind of like, that's very traditional route for Filipinos, by the way, if you didn't know that. So,
and they all moved to New Zealand, is that right? There's a lot of your family did relocate to New Zealand?
Yeah, so majority of my family, immediate family, are in New Zealand. I guess everyone on my mum's side is in New Zealand.
Okay. Grandparents still in the Philippines?
So my mum's my mum's mum, so my grandma is here.
Yes.
My granddad passed away about 2 years ago. So yeah.
Nice. And anything, I guess, that kind of stuck out from, how you were raised in the Philippines versus then moving here, right? Because I guess there would be pretty large differences that apparent. I believe you were 10 at the time?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a pretty early time to, I guess, have those types of life lessons, but also things meant one of the things we haven't talked about in a while on the show, but I believe the statistic is that children basically learn all of their ingrained money habits by the age that they're kind of 4.
Oh.
So a lot of your very early experiences and then between the ages of 4 and 7 is when they kind of start to cement some of those behaviors and understanding. So it obviously is really the stuff that you're picking up and observing from your family. So yeah, just interested to hear, I guess, how things might have differed between Filipino life and then moving.
Yeah, totally. I guess it was very common I got an allowance when I was a kid. And it's really funny looking back at it. I got like 50 pesos at the time. So I was around, probably like 8 or 7. And I'll get 50 pesos a week. And if you convert that to here, it'll be around $1.
Okay.
So I basically got $1 a week.
Did that feel like a lot at the time though?
It felt like a lot at the time.
And what did you spend it on?
Lollies, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very
every
classic.
Kid did that, right?
Exactly.
Like surely going to the corner store kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly, was that. So that was kind of my first taste of like an allowance, quote unquote. And from then on, honestly, I can't remember much of my life of like with money in the Philippines. I do remember that my parents really hustled to, get get the best from me and my sister, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's why we ended up moving to New Zealand in the first place. So yeah.
Nice. Awesome. And then you obviously, continue your schooling journey here, work towards university, ended up in the world of like business and finance. Was that always the plan? There's obviously a bit of like medical background in the family. Was it, talk us through how you decided to go down that path.
Totally. So like my family, I guess, is very traditional in that sense at the time when we first moved to New Zealand, in a way where it's like, my granddad's a great example. He's like, the only way basically he learned to be successful in life is to be a lawyer or a doctor.
Right.
Very black and white, that kind of thing. So I kind of grew up thinking like, oh, cool, I'm kind of like destined to either, be in the medical field somehow, or like either become a doctor or a nurse or something like that. Yeah. And growing up, I always thought about it like that way. But like as I got close to like year 12, year 13, that kind of thing, and I saw all my cousins take, not all of them, but a few of them take like the medical route, really made me think like, is that really something I want to do, or is that something that it's kind of been ingrained in my head to do? Yeah. So ultimately, I decided against like doing that, and I was looking at what I was doing well in high school, even though I was doing decently on like the sciences. One thing that really stood out was economics, and I really liked the idea behind that, and I was like, okay, cool, so I'll do a bachelor's of commerce in economics. And I was like, oh, what else can I do? And at the time I was like, I kind of want to be like very entrepreneurial when I leave, and since I'm getting a university degree, may as well get the most out of it. So I was like, what's something that could help me in that front? So I was like, marketing's good, because everyone's always going to look for something to sell, and eventually if I want to do something in that front, that'll be useful. So ended up taking those two. So that's kind of how I ended up with that. And yeah, Mum, it was very interesting talking to Mum about it, because she was like, she'd make those jokes where it's like, you took the BCom, that's not quite a doctor, but that's fine.
The second tier degree.
Yeah, the
is
second
that what
tier
it was?
degree. Yeah. And you get ripped out. It's funny because like in uni, you obviously get like the hierarchies of degrees where people rip out on you for. So it's like one of those things where it's like, you're just doing a BCom. Like, okay. Oh. Like, okay, damn.
It's still pretty top tier for us in Australia. That's like anyone that does an arts degree. It's like, are you just going to university to become a barista? And so then going through the decision, I guess, to do that and do that degree at Otago, what was kind of like the money choices that you had to make around that? Because I assume you're moving out of home to do that. And were you like, how did you learn up about student loans and how to fund that and kind of what your options were?
Yeah, honestly, like I think my biggest downfall was not learning more about how student loans really worked. Yeah. I think it would have been really effective for me to actually just like sit down and like because my cousins went to Otago first, and I went there just for like to go visit them. Yeah. And I loved it. It's really good. Like it's very cool there. And like the university life there is very different to what they have here. So a big factor of me moving out there was one, it was far enough away from my family, but it was close enough that I could visit them. Sure. But anyway, going back to the money situation. Yeah, I wish I learned a bit more about student loans before going there. Would it have changed my outlook on like how much money I would have spent? Probably not, to be honest. Yeah. But yeah, ultimately the decision was like be a bit further away and have more independence. Yep. Or go to Christchurch, which was the other option, because Auckland and Wellington were a no-go for me straight off the bat, because I knew it was expensive. Sure. And so I was like, okay, it's either between Christchurch or Otago. Yeah. And Christchurch was a bit too close, so I was like, okay, let's go to Otago. Nice. And then I guess were you just like, okay, cool, I'm just going to put this on my student loan. That's a normal thing that like Kiwis obviously talk about and people do, and it seems like everyone does that. Yep. And I guess you just like tick a box and I don't know, the money goes somewhere, and then at some point you find out that it totals a large-ish sum of money. So how much do you have on your student loan at the moment? I'm assuming you know this, Tim, because you're a spreadsheet kind of guy. I do know this. It's around 40K at the moment, I'd say. I took out the max amount of loan as possible every single time, got the course-related costs out every year, and that's... Okay, maybe I don't know if we want to share this or not, but I remember during the it's kind of like a meme, you just take out your student loan and just like don't even worry about the receipts, that kind of thing, and everyone does it. I don't want to encourage this behavior, but like that's super common, and everyone does it. Yeah.
So do you know what the highest amount of it was? Like when you left university, I assume obviously it's the highest then. Like what was the total sum?
It was around, well, I paid off about 2 or 3K. So I think it was somewhere around $45,000, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I went to Otago for 3 years, took out the max loan, which was around, like for living costs, that kind of thing. So I think it was around $230 a week was the max in that. So realistically, I had that every week coming in, and my dad would give me like $50 a week extra as well. So that was quite helpful.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And I guess, so then taking us back to that time of your life, how did you afford to live?
Oh gosh, this was, yeah.
I mean, I say this as someone that, like, I obviously have, I think I've talked about this on the show before, but came from a very privileged position where in Melbourne, it's, well, in all of Australia, it's very uncommon to move out of home to go to university.
Oh, is it?
So when I speak to people about this in New Zealand, I'm like, this is really weird. Like, A, why do you want to give up free rent living? I mean, I know sometimes, you know, people's parents' challenges, or there could be financial, like family challenges. Cool. But for, you know, some people that have the luxury of doing that, I was like, there's free rent, you know, it's easy, all that kind of stuff. And I think as well, because there's so many universities in Melbourne that are very close to the CBD, it's very accessible. Like,
that
people don't really need the idea of being on campus or staying somewhere where that's like 40 minutes from my house is a bit weird. So coming here and kind of finding out that most people move somewhere, and obviously there's a whole experiential part of that, which is awesome. But I guess, for me, I'm like, I think of myself at university, and I had a part-time job that basically just funded my social life and the small amount of money that I paid my parents in board, and then it put like fuel in my car and paid my phone bill. That was essentially like all my costs. And then I went on holidays when I managed to like work harder and save more money. But I'm like, what do you do when you're out of home for the first time and you're in university? And I guess there's a lot of temptation to like do social things with your mates.
Yeah, so that's probably one of the biggest things that you have to factor in if you're going to go to like uni, like especially Otago, because it's a huge drinking culture there. There's ways to avoid it. It's definitely not something that you have to do, but it's something that like people expect you to do.
Yeah.
And going in there, I had a job in high school. I worked at KFC throughout like my year 11s to 13, and that gave me around $3,000 of savings during that time. So that was a really good buffer to actually do that. And on top of like the course-related costs, and the living cost loan that you get, it worked out pretty fine. So like I think in first year, I had to pay off my hall. So I paid off half of that, which is around, I want to say like $15,000 altogether for the whole year. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't quote me on that.
But that just goes onto your student loan, right? Mostly.
Yes. So half of that. So there's like payment options. So half of that, it probably may have changed by now, but there's probably different options anyways. So we chose to pay off half of the $15K like in cash. So like, like $7,500, that kind of thing. So my dad and I kind of like went halves on that kind of thing. And then the rest of that will be paid off by me every week. In first year. So I'll pay off like a chunk of my living costs will go into that. And I'll have like, I don't know, I think it was like $50 or $70 a week to like spend on discretionary things. So that's kind of the main thing in first year. The second year was very different because you have to go flatting. Well, you don't have to go flatting, but the very common option is to go flatting.
Right.
And that one was a completely different beast to first year because you actually have to figure out how to cook, pay for expenses. That like
split those expenses with people, have those fun money conversations with your five flatties.
My goodness, yeah, that's a very good conversation piece right there.
Did you use like Splitwise or anything like that for all that stuff, or do you have a flat account?
We had a flat account, yes, and there was some dramas behind that because
who manages the flat account?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. It was my mate that managed it, but like I think there was something that happened in between that time, and basically the rights got revoked off of him, and it got put to someone else because it's been you just.
Well, I always wonder with that. I'm like, how do you determine who was the like most financially enabled person to be controller of the flat account? Because oftentimes the person that controls the flat account is not actually that. And I think about this knowing like my husband, he managed his flat account when he was like an adult, not even a uni student, but a regular adult flatting with like friends in Melbourne, and they all had professional jobs. And I think it just got nominated to him because he was the oldest, but he was not at all the most financially well equipped to like actually make sure that rent was paid on time and there was enough of a buffer and they were responsible. So, how people work this out, I don't know.
Well, to be fair, like in second year, I didn't get the privilege of becoming the flat account holder, but in third year I did. And it was actually not that bad. It was just kind of the main thing that you have to worry about in that scenario is what is fair, and people always go because one of the things that we did was like, okay, cool, we'll chip in X amount of dollars every week to cover living costs in the flat, which is like, you know, I don't know, things that are common that everyone uses, like, say, toilet paper, for example.
Right.
And dishwashing liquid, I don't know, paper, baking paper, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then some people would argue, I don't actually use that much baking paper. I don't actually use the oven. And it's like, come on, like, it's $5 a week.
Yeah.
And between like 5 people, it's not that big of a deal. Like at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's not that big of a deal. It's something that you do grow used to, because like 5%, I don't know, like $5 off a uni student's income is like a pretty big percentage, I guess.
Yeah, they're like, that's my lunch, or, you know.
It could be your lunch, that kind of thing. But some people are just, And it's funny because you prioritize different things while you're in uni. Like,
for sure.
In second year, the whole living independently without anyone supervising you basically is like a very different lifestyle than first year, when you have like residential assistants looking after you, like a whole slew of faculty basically that work for the uni, cook your food and look after and make sure you're not, you know, being stupid all the time. And in second year, that's quite a big jump for some people. Like, I like to think I was pretty independent, and my parents did a pretty decent job at doing that. So
so I guess on that, like, whilst you're in school, you obviously had the high school job. Did you have to pay for stuff yourself during school when you were living at home? Like, what kind of, I guess, was your parents' expectations of you?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, that kind of thing, when I started getting a job, when I started working, I guess, I started paying for everything, really. Everything that included, like, you know, clothes, like, I think I paid for my football things, shoes. My parents would chip in every now and then, but for the most part, anything that involved me and me only, I would pay for it.
Yeah, cool.
Like, even, like, gas money, that would be me, $20 a week, that kind of thing. I think I would work around 8 hours a week, and that'll give me around $170. And what I used to do was save $100, use $20 for my fuel, and I was very stingy with my fuel. Every time people are like, "Oh, Tim, can you so redeem me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that'll be $20."
Yeah.
Because
get in the car and like pay me your money.
Exactly.
Tim's just running an Uber in Ashburton.
That's right, and there are no Ubers in Ashburton, so it's quiet. I was like, "Yeah, cool, all me."
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me a good basis of like, what, $50 a week to like spend on the canteen. Yeah, cool. And like KFC, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And that $100 that you were trying to save a week, that's kind of what got you to the $3,000 saving.
Right.
Yeah, by the end of school.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, nice. What did you do in school holidays and stuff? Did you work more, like over summer?
Yep. Yeah, I did. I picked up shifts, and it's like closing shifts as well. And oh my god, like I have a
because they paid more.
No, not even that. It's just because like they give the shitty. The shitty ships to the young ones because they know they want money, and that's just like the way it is. And like, you know, I can't even fault them for that because like other people have like, you know, commitments that they have to commit to, and kids can just do it because they can and they have no other prior commitments. So I didn't mind it, and plus I needed the money, so it worked out.
Yeah, cool, awesome. So you got the privilege of being the flat money holder in year 3, and then remind me, is it a 4-year degree or a 3-year degree?
BCom's a 3-year degree. I did a double major, which you can do. I think you can do it in like 3.5, but I just kind of stacked up on a few papers, and just did it in 3. Okay. Yeah.
And then you're getting to the end of university, and then what happened?
And then what happened? Oh yes, what happened there? That was interesting. My last year was COVID year. So it was very interesting how that worked out, because that was when everyone was just like, oh yeah, everyone can work remote and obviously study remote, that kind of thing. So my first semester was basically online based, and then the second one was back at uni, but it felt kind of weird. And next thing you know, it just ended. So I was like, oh cool, that didn't feel like I finished at all, because you're doing things online, and my grad almost got cancelled, that kind of thing. But anyway, it was around... Did
you have to do the first semester, did you go back to Ashburton and do it from home, or were you in the flat?
I was in Ashburton and went back to Ashburton.
How did that work? I'm interested. Like, did anyone stay in the flat, and how do you kind of... Like, what happened with the finances? Or were you just like, we're moving out, it's COVID, like, we're not paying the rent?
That's a good point. Well, like, one of the biggest things was like, oh, I'm not in the flat. Like, do I have to pay rent?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you have to pay rent. You're going to have to pay rent. Everyone's paying rent. You have to go, even if you're not there. It's like...
Interesting. And did everyone was okay with that?
Everyone was fine with it. Like, at the end of the day, you can't really do anything. I think, nothing really. I was going to say, like, I think someone sublet their room, but That could have
But for
happened.
the
I can't
most
remember.
part,
For
it
the
was-
most part, no, not really.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, like in my head, it's like, oh, you committed to a year already because that's how it worked there. You have to
Yep.
commit to a year,
Yeah.
and you stay there for basically a year. So if
Yeah.
you choose to like, oh, I don't like these guys, they suck.
Yeah. Too bad.
Too bad. You basically have to sort it out. Well, you can break the contract, but you have to find a replacement, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of admin because like then you also have to find a flat that's like taking someone in during halfway through the year or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah,
Sounds a bit cutthroat.
it is a bit.
Do people
cutthroat.
get stressed about finding flats?
Yeah.
Like leaving halls and going into flats in year
Oh,
two?
yeah.
Is it
It's
really
huge.
competitive?
It's very competitive.
Is it like to the highest bidder? Is it most popular kid?
It's not quite
like
that.
how ruthless are we
Well, like,
talking?
I remember when first year people were panicking like, oh, I need a flat for second year and it'll be only like June. And it's like,
Oh
well,
my
shit,
God.
you're not going to move into like February of next year. Like, why is everyone already looking?
What if you don't like those people in 7 months' time?
Oh, that's a huge factor, honestly. That's one of the biggest things I learned in uni is that like it's pretty. The people you flat with is a huge like commitment.
Yeah.
It's a very big commitment, and
Yeah.
the thing is like,
Makes your parents not look so bad, right?
yeah,
Families are great. Like not total strangers, but like semi-strangers, a lot can go wrong there.
That's right.
At least you
That's a
know
good
what you
point.
know you're
Yeah.
getting when it comes to family.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's weird because like a lot of uni students in year 13, right? Oh, sorry, year 13 kids that go to uni are
Yeah.
basically still high school kids.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that until like I don't know, it was my second or third year where I was like, oh my God, like it's still like high school basically.
Yeah.
Like there's a fair bit of people that still live like it's in high school.
Right.
And it's fine. Like, that's the way it is. Like that's kind of the vibe in first year for sure. But the moment you start like, flatting and stuff like that, it's like, dude, like
People need to grow
grow
up a
up.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
kind of
we're through COVID. Well, I guess halfway through COVID because COVID obviously continued for a while, but
Yes.
through like the year of COVID, and then you didn't really have the whole exciting graduation thing. But you're thinking about jobs.
Yes.
Like, how did you approach that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So right before I was about to graduate, which is around, I think it was around October, November when my last exams were coming up, I was already looking for jobs. And I felt
Okay.
quite confident at the time because I
Yeah.
was getting like interviews and people were like asking for references and stuff like that.
Cool.
And I get to that stage and so, I think I got to like 3 interviews for one company at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like basically ghosted me. And I was like, are you serious? Like you interviewed me 3 times and you just ghost me. Like,
No.
it was not good. But anyway.
And are these in
yeah.
like, were you just trawling Seek?
Yeah,
Or,
I was just
yeah?
trying Seek.
Yeah.
I didn't really know where else to look. And
Okay.
looking back at it now, I was like, dang, there's so many resources out there. Like there's literally a uni portal. There's like a student job search thing that you could actually
Yeah.
use to...
Even like
Or, like,
LinkedIn
offer
and
jobs.
just like,
Yeah.
I guess, looking for companies that you kind of
Definitely.
connect with, right? And seeing
Yeah.
what they're posting and maybe,
Mm.
trawling their websites and
Yeah. There's heaps of resources and like you actually just have to sit down and look. And
Yeah.
the thing is like when you're at that age, you're like, oh, I don't care. Like I'll
whatever,
find a job.
whatever pays me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And at the time, I felt confident. I was like, yeah, cool. I've got a uni degree. I'm pretty smart. Like
I can make this work.
I could make this work. And then next thing you know, it's like January and you're like, oh, like, oh, so actually, no, I didn't get that far. I think I got to like almost end of December. At that point, I was like kind of panicking. I
Right.
was like, oh my God, I need a job. Like
And what were your parents saying at this point?
my parents were just like, take any job that you can get. And I was
Classic parent
yeah.
advice.
And they were like, and I was like, why? And it's like, oh, like you're a grad. You know nothing. Like you're good, If anything, you're kind of a burden at times. Like, which is like fair.
Love the honesty though.
Like, yeah, it is.
They've
And
got a level with you.
yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that you
Yep.
like you don't really get the choice when you're a grad. You don't get the benefit of choice. And you can't be spoiled for choice when you're a grad. Unless you're like, heaps of experience, you did all these extracurriculars and you're
Yeah.
straight A student.
Do you know what
Yeah.
though? I think even if you are that person in comparison to just a regular human, you're still the same burden on the company, right? Like your parents are right in saying that in a sense that I think with any grads, most businesses know that they're not going to get the output they need from that individual as an employee for a certain period of time
Totally.
because you don't have the domain experience in knowing like how all our marketing software works and like you've never used HubSpot and just like those little simple things. And so for anyone that's listening that's just a normal, lovely person like Tim and maybe not like a super straight A student that did all the clubs and all the internships and all of that stuff. I mean, sure, there are probably some roles in some industries where that does give you an edge. But for the most part, like being smarter doesn't necessarily make you more amazing in the eyes of the employer.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And that was probably the biggest things that I learned, was that you get humbled real quick when you're a grad, and you kind of just take what you can get, which, like, yeah, you can be picky. Don't get me wrong. Like, you can choose to take something or not. But at that point in time, I remember just not even putting Auckland in the search bar in like Seek, and I'll just like filter it out straight away. Yeah. And the thing was, as the closer I got to like the Christmas break, the more I was just like, okay, cool, whatever, we'll see how it goes. Mm-hmm. And you can always say no if like the thing comes. And yeah, I opened up Auckland, and I remember this like as clear as day. I was looking at marketing jobs, and I would search up, just like marketing in the search bar, and I'd filter out Auckland, and I was like, okay, cool. What happens if I put in Auckland? And it's like there's there's like 100% more jobs. So basically, 50% of the jobs are in Auckland, and I was trying to avoid Auckland that whole time, mainly because I was like, I don't want to go to Auckland. Auckland, like, there's Jaffas there. I hate to do that. They complain about like 10-degree weather. Yeah.
They don't understand what a real cold is.
That's right.
Or what winter actually means. It's really humid.
But yeah, exactly. But then next thing I know, I got a job offer at a advertising agency, and it was hard to say no because there was nothing else coming in. But funny enough, when I moved into that job, I got like 3 calls saying, "Are you still looking for a job?" Like,
interesting.
Dude, like, it's been 3 months. Wow. Where were you 3 months ago?
Yeah.
But like, it makes sense now that I've had like 2 years of experience at work.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard so much. Like, people don't really, like, it's hard to do those things when it's like at the end of the year. Like, hiring.
Yes.
Like, for example, like here, like when you guys are hiring now, it's quite a big ask. It's actually a lot of resources to take some.
And I guess as well, like, just on that practical sense, right? It's like a lot of people, particularly if they have children and they're in a position that involves hiring other staff, like, well, they may actually just not even physically be here to do that process, right? And then a lot of people obviously take time off over summer anyway, and by the time people kind of get back into it, it's like you kind of do need to work on the fact that most businesses are only kind of actively doing what I would say like new work, right, until the end of November, and then December, January sometimes is like holding pattern months, and then they kind of kick back into it, which is not great when you don't know that sort of stuff coming out of university. That's right. Or you're like, oh.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I learned straight away, was that if a job ad was like, I don't know, like anything past 2 weeks old, I'm like, nah, no shot. That's not happening. Like, the odds of them finding a good candidate within like the first week is pretty high. Yeah. And anything past that, I kind of don't trust the fact that they'll be like, yeah, cool, someone
look at it.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah. I mean, hey, I know like from our experience when we have opened up graduate roles, we get like proportionately compared to other roles in the business, the highest percentage of applications obviously coming in for, entry level positions. And it is hard because it's like often a lot of people are really great and there's not a lot to differentiate them. And as someone that has had to sift through like 170 CVs, I hate to admit, but you start to get pretty savage of like, okay, there's a spelling mistake in this cover letter and, none of this really makes sense and I can tell you haven't personalized it. And you do rely on some of those things to just weed through candidates, because otherwise you're going to be there for 4 days.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do remember that too, because I think I had around 50 applications. I applied for like 50 jobs. Yeah. And I had like, I don't know, 5 people get back to me with something and only about like 2 or 3 interviews. Yeah. So that's like a 10% hit rate. Engagement rate. Like, there you go. It's not big at all. Right.
So what changed, I guess, from your graduate application experience through to then looking for your kind of second professional role in terms of you knowing what to do to make your application stand out?
Right. I guess this is very interesting, right? So my lens has completely shifted at that point in time. I was like, in order to actually find someone to look at my things, I had like a marketing lens on it as well. It's like, right. Obviously, if there's
tailor it to the industry that you're applying in.
Tailor it to the industry. Do your research. When I found my first job, I looked at what I did right there, which is basically I did research. I did all these things. I said all these things. Yeah, just did lots more research on that front, and kind of like as you said, tailor it to the actual position.
Yeah.
And the thing was, it's really hard to fake. Like, I actually really liked the position that opened, and that's basically what I studied for, was one fact.
Yeah.
And the other one was like super into like finance at the time, like I still am.
Yeah.
I'm like
Clearly.
Yeah, exactly. And I was super into finance, so I was like, this is like literally
The two things
combined.
How?
And it's like,
Why?
this is
Oh my
very
God.
rare for a lot of like people
Yep.
actually finding the best of both worlds in their jobs. So
Mhm.
yeah, I did more research into the company, and like it was very easy to do research on Kernel because everything was online. And
Yeah.
like I mentioned the podcast during my interview as well. I remember that, and looking through their LinkedIn, and there was like a lot of green flags there. So I was like, oh, this is great. Hopefully I get it. And I remember following up because it was like, I think it took like a week for you guys to get back. I was like, guys, what's happening?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, to the point of it's like you're busy, right? You're interviewing people. You're also trying to do your BAU.
Totally,
You're
yeah.
trying to get back. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so then I guess changing tact a little bit, because I know we can't keep you in this interview for too long. Let's say you're an adult now. I don't know. Do you
yes.
feel like an adult?
Kinda, yeah.
Kinda,
I feel
yeah.
like it.
Okay. You've got some money. You've been earning, I guess, like starting salary for a while, kind of progressing on that.
Yep.
You start to then transition towards knowing that you can start, I guess, or move closer towards various money goals.
Totally.
So how are you kind of tackling that? Like, just talk us through, I guess, some of the things that you are conscious of in terms of maximizing your money as a relatively early in their career kind of person.
Yeah. So first thing I do is put my salary into pay.net.nz.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Love that. I spend so much time on there.
I love that
Just
website.
dreaming about how much I could get paid.
That's right.
It's so fun.
It's great. Yeah, I put my thing in there, put in how much I pay for student loans and Kiwis, and then
Yep.
you get the take-home amount, which is exactly right. So it's great. So you, off the bat, you get like a full overview of what you get for the year,
For sure.
every week, month, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And then from then on, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do the fixed expenses, right? So which is rent, very easy, internet, stuff like that, minus that in the thing, and I take that as a percentage.
Yep.
And then from the whatever's left, I kind of break up into chunks.
Cool.
I'll try and save. I think right now I'm trying to do like 30 to 40% like into savings and investing.
Yep.
And I get around like a few, I think it's like 15% or something on like discretionary things. But like that's not like, it's not very accurate because I do
Sure.
dip into savings every now and then. So it's not very consistent.
Yep.
But if you automate everything, it works
Yeah,
really,
nice.
really well.
And with the automation piece, do you have like your pay going into one main bank account,
Yep.
and then does your discretionary spending go from a second bank account, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's all under one account. No, sorry. Like it's all under one bank.
Okay.
I have like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 accounts, I think. And it's a lot of like...
There
moving
is a
bits.
limit to there's too many sometimes, Tim.
Yeah, I know. I
What
was
are they all
like...
for? Is it like emergency fund?
Yes.
House savings?
Yeah. Yeah, so it goes...
Holiday savings?
let's
I'm
pull
just
it-
gonna guess
let's
all your
pull it
goals
out.
here.
Let's pull it out, eh?
Okay,
All right,
yes.
let's-
Show me.
Cool. So we've got...
Is this with Westpac or
This
BNZ?
is with Westpac,
Yeah,
yes.
Westpac makes this super easy.
Yeah,
Love their app
it's
as well.
quite
They do.
nice.
Shout out to
Yeah,
them.
Oh, here we go. Yep, so what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9.
Oh my God,
I have 9
Tim,
accounts.
tell me.
Okay, so basically my first account is what I call my disposable account.
Okay.
So this is everything like, discretionary. And I put in like, every week I give myself a budget.
For fun stuff?
For
Or
fun
just
stuff.
everything?
For fun stuff.
Like lunch?
Yeah, lunch.
Doing things on the weekend?
Yeah, doing things on the weekend, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that I have my emergency fund, which is like, I think it's in the savings account. I can't remember what it's called, but if you pull out too much money, if you pull out too many things, you
don't get the interest rate.
No, and it's not that. It's they penalize you for if you pull out like too much,
okay.
like too many transactions at 1 month or something.
And are you currently contributing to that on a regular basis, or
Yep.
have you got enough in there?
I'm contributing to
Okay.
it. Yeah, so that's where I put my emergency fund.
What are
yeah.
you aiming to get that to?
Around $3,000.
Okay.
Like I've had to dip into it because of my holiday coming up next week. Not next week. Sorry, next month.
He wishes it was
Yeah,
next
I know,
week.
right?
It's not.
Yeah.
Sorry. Tim.
Yeah, and then I have my rent account.
Okay.
And then I have
Yep.
utilities and groceries. And
Yep.
then I have, I don't know, you can't reorder it, which is kind of annoying because I want to reorder it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I have my holding account, which is where I get paid. And
Okay.
that's kind of like where all the expenses get
Deducted from?
deducted from. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like any direct debits come out of there?
Yep. Definitely, yeah. So most of it goes out of there, and then I have my events budget for like flying around the place, like to go see my family, that kind of thing.
Nice.
And then I have another fun account,
Okay. Yep.
which is kind of just like separate from my discretionary everyday spending, because like
Is this like big ticket fun items?
kind of, it's kind of just like things to like, oh, you want to go like buy a new T-shirt or something, then I'll take money out of that. And then I have my investments account, which honestly, looking back at it, I probably don't need this because it just goes straight into Kernel. Like, it's just an account to have like money in, and then it just transfers to
Whereas
Kernel.
you could just probably do that from your holding
Exactly,
account.
yeah. But I was like, I already have an account. And then I have my medical things, which just gets money in every time. So, yeah.
And is that just stockpiling money for future medical expenses, just in case?
Just in case, yeah. Like things related to my health, like, I don't know, like even like a haircut. I think I take money out of that. It's like, yeah, cool.
Okay. I mean, it is a lot of accounts. Is it working? Do you like it?
It works fine.
Great.
And like, I like it because it separates it into like buckets, right?
Yes.
And I know if I'm missing money in my rent account one week and there's an issue there, and I can identify it straight away. Yeah, that's the main thing I like about it. And it's like, oh, cool, I'm not saving this week, for example, because it hasn't, there's no money in there. Like, things like that. Yeah. So
it definitely does help. I had very similar amounts of buckets when it was just me having my money by myself. And then when Luke and I combined, it was just a complete shit show trying to have like that many accounts across two people. And so now, I mean, we still have a lot of accounts, but it's a bit different. But I do like the Dualfun money because the trouble that I'm currently running into is the amount that I get paid on a fortnightly basis into my like fun money account is for coffees, but then it's also for like haircuts, right? Yes. And if you're a chick, you don't get haircuts every week. And so I'm currently trying to be like, stop spending all your haircut money on coffees and lunch because you're going to get to a time where you need a haircut and you're going to have no money and then you're going to go and stinkily sneak money from somewhere else. So yeah. I maybe need to get on some more accounts there.
Get more accounts. No, don't do that. But yeah. It depends. Whatever works for you works, right?
Nice.
That kind of thing.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Awesome. And I guess, you obviously check into that a little bit and kind of up it when you're looking at like pay reviews and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's quite a process because I'm like, I don't want lifestyle inflation to kick in. And even
but also it does.
Yeah, but also it does. And that's the thing that I'm like, I've been thinking about this for a while. It's like, am I going to change my lifestyle if like that kind of thing? Yeah. It's like, I like there's no reason for me to upgrade, but also like there's so many things in life that just
need to happen.
Just happens. Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. Nice. Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
No worries.
I guess to wrap up, for anyone that's listening that is either, making that transition from university to full-time work or also in kind of, that newly full-time employed position and perhaps haven't got all their money sussed in such an amazing way. Yep. Any tips? What's your like one or two must-dos?
One or two must-dos. To me, I'd probably like watch heaps of videos. Watch our videos. Like
learn from people?
Learn from people. Like listen to podcasts, that kind of thing. I think the main thing that like
I remember in your interview, Tim, I honestly was like, knew every YouTuber about finance. You'd watched all the things. Yes. I was like, this guy has just absolutely been like learning all the stuff that we hope people learn.
Yeah, exactly. So like the thing is like I'm really interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The moment I learned about like, compounding interest, that kind of thing, and how big of a thing that is, especially when you're young.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think I learned it when I was like 20. And at that point I was like, I feel
I've
so
missed
old.
The golden years. I'm already past it.
Exactly. So like learn that as soon as you can and really stick to it is the main thing. Like whatever make a system that works for you. If that's like having 9 accounts and then transferring out of that, do it.
Yeah.
Or like, I think automating works as well. Like,
awesome.
Yeah, so I gave you 3 just then. But
nice.
Hey,
love that.
Yeah. It works really well.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
I think we're going to have you back on the show to talk about all things Gen Z because we haven't even scratched the surface of my challenges with the generation. I'm really giving away my age here. I am an elder millennial, but also I think it's just, really, really interesting because it's a tough time for everyone. Like regardless of, I think, your upbringing or understanding of money as a child, the reality is like you are a child and then you all of a sudden are thrown into like forced to be an adult, mostly at university, and then all of a sudden you have money and it's very easy to just, I don't know, try and make it work and then sometimes realize that that's actually not what you want to be doing or the best thing to do with your money. So super kudos for you for having 9 accounts and getting to this point because you have so many of the really, really strong, great like financial habits already checked off, Tim, that, if lifestyle creep is your biggest concern, you, my friend, are already crushing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us.
No worries.
We will see everyone next Tuesday. Bye.